What's up, guys? Got Dave and Abby here, the OGs. So for today, we're going to talk about victimhood mentality. So before we go into the different questions, just wanted to quickly define what victimhood entails. So it pertains to a mindset, right? Like when you identify as a victim, you tend to see certain things as happening to you. And as we go on, we'll kind of talk about like the different causes, why people tend to develop such a mindset and how it can affect us as we progress through different stages of our lives. So to kick things off, for Dave and Abby, can you think of a moment in your lives where you felt trapped in victimhood, whether there was a phase where you identified as that?
So we identified as a victim. Do you have one right away?
I think right off the top of my mind, when I've been using alcohol significantly in my life, that tends to be the moment when I go down that track where I feel like I'm the most a victim. I think it opens up ideas and characteristics within me that allows me to believe that I am less a product of who I am and what I stand for and more a result of the negative in my life. And that is typically not the type of person I am. So specifically, I can think of...
Do you think alcohol traps you?
Oh, heck yeah. It gives me the idea that I'm invincible and I'm a better person and a better friend and a better, overall human. But then I think it reveals parts of who you are and cages you into the belief that there's nothing better out there in the world. And so at my lowest points, when other things have happened and I've reverted to alcohol as a coping mechanism, that victimhood comes out as an idea that life will never get better. So yes, that's a straight up example right there.
That's super good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to kind of build off. I actually didn't even think about alcohol until you brought it up. For me, it's more like playing the woe is me crap. But alcohol, that was like one of the worst things that I did, I think, between the age of 17 to 30 until I quit drinking. And I used it. So I didn't think I was an alcoholic because I wouldn't use it during the week, right? I wouldn't touch it. And then on the weekend, I'd just get annihilated and I'd black out every single time I drank. So I'd just drink to excess. And I used it every weekend to escape my reality. And I thought, well, this is my only way that I can, mellow out or tame myself down, because I'm always high strung and my mind's always going a million miles an hour. And when I drank, I didn't give a crap, which, it felt kind of good to not give a crap for a while. But in reality, drinking shuts off the part of your brain that helps you to discern. And I think it ruined some friendships, and I think it hurt my marriage. And to be honest, my kids, they don't remember me drinking, but I don't think that it's the man that they would want to see. And I played victim to the alcohol then.
Right. I think for me, it was an everyday thing. And I don't think I would call myself a functioning alcoholic when it came to things like that, because I'd make it through the day or even have one or two during the day, and most people wouldn't be able to tell. And then go home and have 2 to 3 Long Islands or something strong just to be able to sleep at night. And I think it didn't start off that way. I didn't start drinking until I was probably 37,
Wow.
38. So mine is a much different story. I never really even drank prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a coping mechanism I found later when I didn't know how to deal with stress, or when I decided to face the stress and challenge it. And it was easier to hide from it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I view victimhood as a little different. It's entirely a mindset thing. And for me personally, it's been a case of not taking responsibility. So back in middle school, back in high school, I was a troublemaker. I didn't do well in school. I always blamed the teachers. Like, they didn't teach me the materials. I was the victim. People were bullying me because of all of these things. And no matter what happens, you can always identify as the victim. Like, it's like, oh, my life sucks, there's no internet, or my boss is being mean to me, or my friends are saying mean things. And over time, I realized you're the victim only if you decide to be one. And you can choose to take control of your circumstances and change it. So if you're not liking how certain things are going, like the economy is not going well, you're not making enough money, you're not physically in shape, you could choose to play the victim and stay that way, or you could do something about it. So that's how I view the overall concept.
Yeah, I think today's society, it's really easy for people to play the victim card. Like, I am overweight because my family's or genetics or some BS, or I don't have any money because I can't find a job. I get bad grades because I'm stupid, or I don't know. But
The teacher sucks.
yeah, the teacher sucks.
They didn't teach me what I
Yeah.
need to know.
Yeah, but in reality, you're the victim because you are playing that part. And I guess maybe later on today in this, we can kind of roll like how to pull yourself out of that victimhood. But I feel like everybody, no matter who the person is, has been a victim at some point. I don't care how strong your mentality is. And at some point, you've had to pull yourself out, or at least I hope you've tried to pull yourself out of that and then become a better version of you, which is what we're trying to do at Apex, right? We're trying to find the best version of each individual person. And that's not just through health and fitness, right? That's through getting into the head. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that ties in well to the next question. So what is the one narrative you've told yourself repeatedly that might be holding you back in life, whether in the past or even today?
Yeah, I can start with that. So growing up, I had a learning disability, and I did not do well in high school or grade school at all. I think I graduated with like a 2.2 out of high school. And to be honest, I think part of that was like that I played into it. The teachers said I had this learning problem, so like I couldn't learn well. So I just used it as an excuse to be dumb, where in reality, I just wasn't either trying hard enough in some places, or I didn't really care that much about whatever the subject was, which is probably most of it. I didn't like school. I liked my friends and I liked, parts of school, but I didn't like the learning piece. And then after the Air Force, I went to college and I did really, really well in college. I think I graduated with like a 3.8. But what was the only difference is that I stopped playing into that I'm dumb, right? Because in reality, I understand learning disabilities and stuff, but there's also lots of tools out there that you can use to make yourself better. It's like getting a personal trainer at the gym, right? Well, why do you need a personal trainer?
Because you can't do it on your own.
Well, it's hard to do life alone, right? Why do we need business partners? It's hard to do business alone. Why do we need a house cleaner? I know not all of us have that, but I'm just saying. Some stuff, like, it's important for us to realize that if we ask for help, I think we get more out of life, right?
Right.
It is better to do life with other people, which is why like CrossFit I think works so well, because it's a community, it's a group of people, and the group of people feeds off of each other. So it's a healthy group of people. Same thing with like church, right? Hopefully at a church it's a healthy community and they help each other become better. So for me, the I guess what was holding me back, and I'm not gonna say it's holding me back anymore because I don't use that really as an excuse anymore, because I actually don't feel like I am dumb anymore. I feel like maybe I learn slower than some other people, or like certain things just don't click. Like you guys are super good with numbers and sheets and stuff, and that looks like a different language to me. But that's why you guys are on the team, right? Because that component, like I can do it, I just can't do it as fast. And there's certain things that I can probably do faster than you guys can, but we can play off each other's cues. So like what I've learned along the way is rather than me playing victim to I'm not good at this, I can learn a little bit and kind of understand it, and then find somebody that's better at it to work with me on it. And then that just expands, and we can use all of our strengths together, right? And just stop playing the I am too dumb to do this. Or like, I'm sure a lot of people, like, if they don't want to do college, fine, don't go to college, whatever. But I guarantee you there's something you're good at. And I guarantee you there's something you're going to find that you love. You just have to pull yourself out of that toxic BS thought that you're going to fail.
Right. Like society puts people into boxes. Like growing up I came to the U.S. when I was 8. I didn't know a single word. I was the foreigner. So for a long time, I had that mindset. Like I was the foreigner. I didn't know the language. That's why I was failing school. In middle school, 6th grade, 1.3 GPA. So join the club, bro. But yeah, like throughout middle school, I held that self-limiting belief that I'm not meant to be good at school. I'm not meant to do great things because I had a disadvantage. And it's that story that I keep telling myself over and over that holds me back. And it wasn't until high school where I created a new narrative that, like, yes, there will be challenges, but if you're willing to move forward and rise to the challenge, you'll do better. And I did better in high school, and I did better in college, or even like in fitness. I hated running for most of my life. Even I'm still not a fan of running today. But if I were to put myself in a box, like, hey, I'm not a runner, I'm not meant to run, I should stay away from it, I would never do much. But now I'm training for 5Ks, I'm running a half marathon. Still not a fast runner, but I'm not allowing myself to conform to that box.
Yeah, that goes back to what I was saying before. Like, you may not be the best at this, but you can still do it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, in business, it works the same way.
Right.
But that's good.
I think mine is a little bit different when it comes to this. I think the words that keep holding me back were that I'm not good enough to be accepted for this. And so I was the opposite, where yes, I had a learning disability I was dyslexic, still am. Grew up, but I was
I would not know that.
Yeah.
You're one of the smarter people that I know.
I passed it on to my son, and we're struggling with it now. So it's one of those things where his mentality and his victimhood with that is something I've had to help him work through. But mine changed to a point where if I was not the best at something, I was not accepted, right? And so I aimed for the 4.0 GPA in everything that I did. I ran cross country in college and high school to be the best, only struggling internally with not feeling like I was accepted at all for who I was. And so that created a whole different level of victimhood, right? Like it even comes out now in friendships where I sometimes struggle to be open about who I am, what I'm feeling, because it's just easier to hide it, right? And pretend like everything is okay. But that's a different type of victimhood.
Right.
I think it tends to be one that maybe women in general hide a little bit more. Maybe I'm stereotyping, but I think that's why you seek out certain people in your life that help you realize that you are not a victim. You're a victor in whatever you do. You can be successful in that, and you can be loved for exactly who you are, regardless of whether you fail or succeed.
So then, like, tying into characteristics of victim mentality, if we're working with clients, how do we identify signs of, like, that person is trapped in a victimhood mentality? What do we look for to be able to identify that?
Or this could even go to, like, in your workspace or like at home or in friendships. So how do we identify that if somebody's in that? I would say
Generally, people start to pull away, don't they? If you start to see it.
that, and you hear a lot of these self-limiting things like, I can't do this.
Don't, can't.
Yeah, those words.
Yeah.
Yeah, like immediately, like when I have a client do something, like, hey, do 10 push-ups, like,
I can't do that.
10, that's a lot. I'm not sure I can do it.
An unwillingness.
Exactly, yeah. Just self-doubt, hesitation, their words and body language, that's what I use to be able to at least identify the symptom, but then having a genuine discussion like, hey, what are your visions, ambitions? Do you think you are cut out for certain things? And based on their response, you can kind of gauge where they're at in terms of confidence level and the amount of limiting beliefs they're putting on themselves.
Do you think, so like when you're working with a client or when you're working with somebody with the self-limiting beliefs, do you think that it's like helpful for you to try to communicate small wins? So like maybe that, let's just go back to the push-up analogy. I tell somebody that doesn't work out, do 10 push-ups. Like, or we can even go harder. Let's do 5 pull-ups because pull-ups are harder than push-ups, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, I can't do a pull-up. Well, they probably can't do a pull-up, right? And that's fine. But like, what are some tools to help them get to that point where maybe they can do 1? I understand that there's getting stronger, there's possibly losing weight, there's stuff like that. But like, how do you like pull their mindset out of this, I can't do that? Because I hear that all the time. Like, I'm never going to be able to do this, or I'm never going to be able to do that. But saying never is destructive.
So for me, the ways I've done it, the most direct way is simply proving them wrong through their actions. So they tell me like 10 push-ups is impossible. Well, throughout the course of half an hour, I sneak in like 30 push-ups, and then I tell them like, hey, earlier today you told me you can't do 10, but in the last 20 minutes you did like 40. So why are you telling yourself these stories? And then they start to come like have those realizations like, oh shoot, maybe I can do these things.
That's good.
Or similarly, like we went through like the project, right? Like or SEAL Fit, like working out straight for 12 hours, 75 hours. It's like, shit, how are you?
I did not do this. This was all you.
Right. So like we have these self-limiting beliefs. Like it's like there's no way you can do that for that long. But part of the experience is showing us that we can. We're capable of a lot more than we say we are.
Yeah, and that was the whole point of those, is to like show that you can do more than what your brain thinks you can. What were you gonna say?
Right. I was going to just show out, like not allowing them to use those words during the course of your.
I like that.
I think setting the standard that when we start, like, I accept you for who you are, and can't is not a word that we allow in the course of our conversations or our discussions. Modifying is, but can't is not. So let's figure out what works for you and then move forward from that. And if one day a pull-up is on the list of what you want to do, then we'll take those steps to get there, because we've all struggled with whatever there is, but never just means you're never going to start. It doesn't mean you can't get there, right?
Right.
Yeah, so like a couple of bad things happened like in business for me, and I said, so that we just did Midwest Championship, which was like a competition, and I did it in 2015. I said after I did it, it was like a bad experience. I'm like, I'm never going to do this again.
Never say never.
I know. But what I'm getting at is then I also, when we opened up, we had another CrossFit gym, I said I'm never going to open another gym. So like part of my process over like since I quit drinking has been reevaluating what I've told myself never, and I try to not say that anymore, that I'm never going to do something. Like I did an Ironman. I don't want to do one right now, but I'm not going to say I'm never going to do another one, because that's probably not true. Maybe I won't do another one, but like there could be a time when I don't have as much going on. I'm like, I want to do another Ironman and train for this, just not right now. So like, I think when people are looking at like a bad situation, something bad happens, and they say, I'm never going to do that again, I think that's a wrong viewpoint.
Right. Mm-hmm. I think there's a way of changing that to also like, I'm learning from this experience. I don't want to do it the same way I did it the last time.
That's better, yeah,
right? Not a never, I'm growing, I'm changing, and I'm taking what I experienced here and making it better for whatever this next experience
Absolutely.
is.
And also, like, taking it logically, if you say always or never, you only need one example to prove you wrong. And that's why, like, those statements, they often don't work, and when they're being used in arguments, it's so easy to prove invalid. So when you make more nuanced statements, like, I can't do this today, but I plan on doing it in the future, it gives you more room for growth. It gives you that flexibility. And I think those are the word choices that do affect how you think, how you feel, but we don't often realize that, and we just use those words willy-nilly, and that can change our ultimate outcome, our relationships, our financial goals, our whatever things that matter to us.
I think this question I want to ask next: what are the emotional and psychological costs of staying in a victim or in a state of victimhood?
So for me, it's the helplessness. If I see myself as a victim, I will let the circumstances dictate what happens. I'm going to hope for the best, and not take control of my own circumstance. So during the project, Pedro says, like, no one is coming to save you. Like, you have to be the hero in your book. You have to write that book however you see fit. So like in the economy, if you're constantly relying on the good times, if you're relying on the government to give you the stimulus checks or unemployment or Social Security, you're going to stay the same. You're not going to do anything to prevent worst case scenario. And then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you think you're the victim, you don't do anything to change the circumstance. And then over time, you do end up being the victim, because things happen and you're not prepared to deal with the consequences.
Now, what about the fight of the minority community thing? So like, you're in a minority community and you're in like a poor community, and you're never going to get out of that. Now I'm going to say you have massive disadvantages, but like, how do you pull yourself out of that?
So I would argue that like those disadvantages can be advantages. So I could have said, like, I was a foreigner. I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the connections. I'm a victim. I will not amount to anything great. Or I could look at it from another standpoint, from the victor mindset. Because I didn't have the resources, I had to learn how to become resourceful. I had to learn how to fend for myself. And as a result, I've developed more skills than someone who was born into, say, a billionaire's family and never had to fend for themselves growing up. So if I look at it from that standpoint,
You have advantages over the billionaire.
right? So my minority status, my poverty, my foreigner identity are actually advantages, not disadvantages. So whether you're a victim or a victor, it's a mindset thing. It's not necessarily reality.
Okay.
I think you've touched on it as well. It's the costs, emotional and psychological. You lose friends for being in a state of victimhood. You lose opportunities. You lose time, in your life, where it just seems to either flow too fast or not fast enough. And what are you giving up to be stuck in that victimhood, right? Like, Are they the experiences with your children? Are they the moments of love with your spouse? Is it seeing the beauty of a sunrise and actually appreciating it? It can be such a small moment. And I think that when we're stuck in this,
Woe is me.
that you forget that while there is shit in this world and it's hard to deal with, there's so much beauty. And for me, beauty always wins.
And it's easy to imagine like we are the worst, our circumstances are the worst, but if we look outward, someone almost always is in a more precarious situation. Like there's a war happening right now out in the...
There's a famine happening somewhere, and I am generally comfortable. Everything is provided. Like I am safe. Like I don't fear for my life or my children's lives. Like
Yeah, you have food, you have shelter.
And this even happened to me like last year. Like I busted my ankle, and I was constantly telling myself like, oh, I have an injury, I can't work out, I have to rest. And so then my fitness went down, my nutrition went to crap. But
That's probably because the doctors told you to not do anything, right?
exactly.
Super irritating. That's another rant, but
Yeah.
that's a whole different podcast.
But there's someone I know who has 3 torn tendons, and he's like biking 45 miles a day. And that's Trey. And it's a mindset. Like you're a victim if you choose to be, or you can do what needs to happen regardless of what you're going through for the primary purpose of mission success.
Right.
are there any like public figures or anybody that you guys know that that have publicly transitioned from being a victim to a victor?
I think any successful people have gone through that phase. Like even like David Goggins, he was 300 pounds, went through Navy SEAL training 3 times. He busted he got rhabdo running the 100-mile race.
But the other things with him is like he was also really poor, and like, you know, I think he was like a janitor or something, and like he had a terrible upbringing too. He was abused by his father really bad. His mother was abused. It was just a terrible situation. So like, he had everything against him.
Right.
And eventually he didn't allow that to turn him around, or to subject from him from actually hitting his goals. So he's a good one.
I think you can think of a lot of celebrities that like don't become popular. Like Harrison Ford, I think didn't really, like, he was a janitor or something along those lines until his 40s. And
really?
And then hit it big. And so like you hear of these stories of these people who don't, you know, what's the other one? The author of Harry Potter, single mom, like on welfare and, well, similar.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Who at one point just decided to give it a go and put their heart into what they believed in, and look what happened. Yeah. So those are the figures that I kind of think of, like Robert Downey Jr., who was in jail for alcoholism and now has these series of movies and is a role model for a wonderful amount of younger kids. Yeah. So, I mean, there are plenty of big named people out there. We just don't always know the story. Like, if you've got a circle, a huge circle, what you see of a person is just that much. Yeah. And so limiting their potential is just almost as bad as the victimhood. Like, don't limit them either. See them for what their successes can be.
I think that's good too. So like the clients that we work with, or like the people watching this podcast, so like if we limit our clients, like if somebody comes to me and says they want to go to the CrossFit Games, and I've heard this a lot of times, like the likeliness of that is pretty small nowadays. But if I were to say there's no frickin' way, that's wrong of me, right? Mm-hmm. The question needs to be, how much time are you going to put into it? You know, you have to ask questions, and maybe they'll decide on their own, like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. But if you put it in the right way, no frickin' way, then they're not going to do it.
And they're not going to trust you either because you
Right.
just broke down their dreams.
Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah, who am I to judge what your dream is? Okay, let's try.
Or even like the foundations of this country is from the taking charge of your story, the victor, not victim mentality. Because like George Washington, anyone from the Revolutionary War, they were oppressed by the Britons, and they could have played victims, like, hey, my life sucks, the government's being mean to me. This is the life I'm destined to live. But that's not what happened. They decided to rewrite their story. They want a life of independence, and they fought for it. And as a result, we're living in the world that we live today. So anywhere you look, you can find people who, you can almost argue that everyone had been a victim at some point. They chose not to be, and that's why they became successful.
Absolutely.
So then going to how we can help our audience overcome these limitations. So what would you say are some daily habits or rituals that can shift perspective from being reactive to your circumstances versus being proactive and taking charge of your lives?
I think starting your day with gratitude is huge.
Yeah, I do that every morning. I do gratitude. Like I write down 5 things that I'm thankful for. I just start my day that way because there's actually a lot of things that we should be thankful for. I mean, I think sometimes it's hard for us to be like, oh, I'm thankful for this, but otherwise you start with like, this sucks. I got to do this
Or
today.
the list of all the things.
Right.
Yeah.
But in reality, a lot of the stuff probably doesn't suck that much, and like we have a lot of good things going for us. And I guarantee you, even like the worst situations, you can probably find something to be thankful for.
Right, like even now, like we're probably stressed about a bunch of different stuff, but if we think about it, we're in a nice air-lit, like we got AC, there's no one shooting at us, there's
There's water, there's food.
yeah, we're not worried about
Coffees.
yeah. So if we look at those small things, there's a lot of things that we can be grateful about. And I mean, we can say that the internet sucks and I can't get my work done, my life is terrible, or we could look at these.
Wonderful tools.
Yeah, it makes me think of the Apostle Paul. So he was like in the worst situations ever, just like in jail most of the time. He was, burned and whatever, but he always had one thing in mind, and it was, to proclaim the gospel of Jesus. But through all those hard times, he found happiness somehow. So, like, thinking of stuff like that gets me more pumped up, right? Because I'm not in jail, and I'm not getting flogged, and I'm not, getting beaten. Mm-hmm. So, like, what am I really complaining about?
Yeah. So are there any books, podcasts, resources that would be helpful for someone who's trying to make this transition?
I think like the biggest thing people need to do is they need to pull themselves out of their.
If they're self-limiting right now, they need to pull themselves out of whatever they're doing that's doing that, and try to connect in some kind of group that is positive. So like a positive group is huge, because let's say you go to work and it's like just a negative environment, which is common, right? Mm-hmm. Well, then you go home and maybe your home life is negative too, just because you get to bring your stupid work environment to the house. So then that's a negative environment. So like, where can you go to have a positive influence, which I think will influence your work, your home, and just basically everything else. So like finding a third place that is a positive influence. And I know that's not a book or that's not a podcast, but I think that might be better because you have to physically go. Mm-hmm. So just going home and like watching TV is probably not the best thing if you have no positive influences in your life.
Right. I was listening to an article or discussion that talked about that exact thing, where it said the people that are the most successful have a third. So it's the house, the job, and then one other option. And what is your third place that supports you, builds you up? So that's part of it. I generally am not a podcast type person, but I have a life coach. I swear when things start heading down the line, he's the person that generally calls my bullshit and he reframes my thought line. And so checking in with him weekly is a way for me to not burden other people that I'm friends with or that sort of thing, because he's there and he knows the story. And generally it's enough of a push to be that someone for me, to break that hold of whatever that mentality is that's self-limiting.
Yeah, for me, it's logically convincing myself that I was being a little bitch. And so let's say my life sucks, I'm 280 pounds. Well, Goggins was 300 and he still got over it. Maybe I have less than $1,000 in my checking account. Well, I know a guy who was in $500,000 in the negative and he still got out of it. So it's like identifying different cases where people have it worse than you, but they still overcame to become where they are. That gives me the indication that I just need to be better and stop playing the victim.
I also think it's cool to think about my story could be one of those stories. Like I could be that person that overcame this, and somebody else is going to use what I did and make their life better, just like I'm using these people that I know that made their lives
right?
better.
And who's to say there aren't people out there already that aren't using your story as a baseline for what
exactly.
Right.
So you never know the little moments in your life that will impact other people's lives.
Yes, absolutely.
So to kind of wrap it up, for the listener, what would you challenge them to do? What is an action step that they could implement starting today to get them on this trajectory to
that gratitude journal, immediately. Find a third place, whether it's church or CrossFit or
a small group of friends or whatever it is, just a third group.
Yeah. But it has to be a positive third group, because if it's another negative,
You're just heading down.
What I'm saying is if that group, if your goal is to go out and drink on the weekends, it's probably not a positive group, right? So it has to have a positive life influence on you to be considered a good third place, because we can have bad third places.
Right. But in addition to that, I think editing current relationships that are not benefiting you is important, because I can go see my positive group from 5 to 6 on a weeknight, but then the other 23 hours I'm dealing with all of the negativity. That's not really going to be enough. It's kind of like nutrition, where I could train like crazy for an hour, but if I eat like shit for the next 20 hours, I'm not really getting closer to my goals. So having that overall just adjustments, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, and making sure everything is stacked in your favor, I think that's going to be important.
And also realizing things aren't going to be perfect all the time.
so you're just going to have to deal with it.
Give yourself a bad day, but realize it's a day.
It's a day, yeah. And there's tomorrow, and hopefully that other group of people that
You go and see is going to help pull you out of your negative situation. So you need people that are going to help you, whether it's your spouse, in my opinion, the people that I work with help me get out of bad situations. The community that I have. So just, I guess, get yourself out, and it might not be an overnight thing, but
Give it time.
yeah, get a life coach. Honestly, I've worked with so many coaches over the years. I think that people overlook that, right? And sometimes a personal trainer can be a life coach.
Right. I think part of it is just having someone that isn't involved in everything that you're involved in. because that,
And they listen.
right, they're a non-involved party. So what they're seeing and what they're able to help you with is from an outside perspective,
Right.
looking in versus all the internal.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a good start for the audience, and we'll kind of wrap it up here.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. And obviously, if you have anything specific for fitness or just better overall health, you can shoot us a message or get in contact with one of us, however you feel fit. And we will see you next time.